Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Portfolio Design 101 with our guest speaker, Mer Walker. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mariana Hernandez. I'm the Assistant Program Manager of Workforce Development here at LA EDC. And I have my colleague, Jose Pelayo, joining me. Jose, if you'd like to say hi.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I just want to share with you, very excited that we have an industry expert, Mer. Thank you so much for joining us. Students, if you have the opportunity to turn on your camera, please do so and engage and take the opportunity to ask as many questions as you can. But thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jose. And once again, thank you all for joining us as well. Our team is a team of 3. We also have a senior director, Jermaine Hampton, who's not on the call, but does form part of our team. And this effort, this webinar that we brought about is through a partnership that we have with the community colleges in the region. And we do a lot of different other work with them as well, whether it be data-driven research to help enhance or the supply and demand of talent, as well as regional advisory meetings and work-based learning opportunities. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can visit the website on your screen, competitiveworkforce.la, and we will be sharing the recording link after this, so you'll have access to the links and the presentations shared today. So with that being said, towards the end of the meeting, we'll have a feedback poll. So if you can hang on for that, it's just a 3-question survey. We really appreciate your feedback. So again, please be respectful, keep your mic off so you can remain muted throughout the presentation. You'll have some time to ask questions towards the end if you feel comfortable unmuting then. If not, you can always use the chat feature. So thank you again all for being here. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to our guest speaker, Mer Walker.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's pretty exciting to be able to speak with you today. I am a product of this region's schools as well. I went to USC for undergrad, and then I went to Art Center College of Design for graduate school. And I'll go over some work in terms of my own personal portfolio, in terms of where things are right now with a consultancy that I own, as well as the work of some colleagues that I've hired over the years, many of which took the route you're taking, which is they went to some of the really great community colleges here and then segued over either to certificate programs or full-time programs at some of the universities and colleges here. And so a lot of the principles that we all shared propelled them as well as myself into positions of some really great opportunities that were global in nature. And we always got really great reaction from people from all over the world who were looking at the caliber of work that was coming out of the talent that was based here in LA. So you guys are well positioned to have some really great opportunities ahead of you. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with the presentation. At any point, please do kind of reach out to Mariana or Jose in terms of questions that you might have along the way. I want to try to keep this fun and light and entertaining for you because it should be fun. Portfolio making is kind of the pinnacle of the efforts that you're usually taking to become creative professionals. And so this should not be seen as a burdensome or a kind of task that you dread. It should be something that you're really excited about doing over and over again. So with that, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen here. All right. So it looks like that's coming through for you guys, right? Okay, so a few guiding principles here on screen on the right around some things I want to cover today with you all in terms of how to think about it. I think the first kind of principle there that you see, understand and research where the opportunities are for you. I think it's really important for creators of all sorts to really kind of just have an innate sense around where you want to land with the opportunities that are out there, and to have several, let's say, levels that you want to pursue. So if you've got an idea that, hey, I really want to work at this really great film and television studio, but they don't necessarily have opportunities for you at the moment, there are things that you could do to align yourself with that for the future by working in an allied industry. So let's say you want to work in film and television, but you actually have really great web skills at the moment. Could you go and work inside of a company that actually works with the film industry, but to produce website and interactive projects? That was literally my path for several years, right? Where I ended up working at ABC Television after having worked in live action production and so forth. So I think it's a note to kind of think about doing your research and digging around and talking to people and kind of really investigating what are some of the things that are really um, resonant with you all in terms of things that you're interested in and things that are maybe 1 or 2 degrees to the left or the right of that particular endeavor, and they might end up being something that really opens up for you in ways you couldn't really anticipate. The second category is around determining what is success for you as well as the people who would employ you. So thinking about, okay, I want to get a job is one big priority, right? But what else do I want? Do I want to kind of learn the ropes of a particular aspect of an industry or a particular profession? What are those things that you really want to see 2, 3 years from the point of you starting at an opportunity that you're able to get into that you feel would propel you towards your future that you really want? And then from your employer's perspective, what are the things that you can really bring to the table in terms of value for them to really not just be excited to hire you, but to actually start to integrate you into the company, right? Like a lot of those first opportunities end up being long-term career informing relationships. You know, I still have deep relationships with the people who hired me 25 plus years ago. And they've become mentors, and in a weird way, I've become that for them when it comes to technology and how things are going forward in the market. So I think in terms of your perspective on what you really want to emerge from that relationship, I think it's a good thing to really map that out and to seek it out when you consider the opportunities that you have before you, because not everyone necessarily is ready to mentor. So you might have to find that somewhere else, but the opportunity might give you the technical skill that you need. The third one is kind of thinking through this notion of what's best in class. Like, what is my real kind of aspirational goal that I have in mind in terms of how I want to present myself, the companies that I work with, and the type of work that we would produce together. I think it's really an opportunity for people to really kind of self-define what they believe is really great work, because that's going to reflect how you actually build your portfolio. The fourth, take it as simply as you can in terms of writing your portfolio um, outline, writing a bio, a very short or a medium length bio, with the tools that are out there now, and with regard to the AI generative tools, there has been no better time to kind of give a very simple prompt on describing your background in a very brief and informative way, as well as a long form way. And that also applies to what we call case studies, right? Where you actually have a particular set of projects that you feel are as encompassing and or holistic in showing your capabilities, your interests, and a successful outcome. And then structuring your work, kind of thinking about, well, I've got 7 projects. Should I add another 7 projects? Maybe not. Maybe 7 is enough, right? And kind of thinking that through, does it show enough of a range in those 7 projects versus needing to kind of have someone sift through to try to find what they're looking for if you were applying for something that was in the entertainment or in the health and life sciences industry or in the civic category. If you can kind of think through how you want those projects and those case studies to represent you and to help you surface in people's scan for the type of work that applies to what they're doing and that you're seeking, that's going to really serve you well. The fifth point around the tools, right? There's a ton of tools out there. Some are really extremely impressive now, how sleek they are and how accelerated your process can be in creating your portfolio. But I think also thinking through where and when will people see it? And in some cases, is it even appropriate to post publicly? There are many projects that you'll work on in your careers that the work is either not released or you don't have the permission. So you'll need to have some security around that. but you'll also be kind of asked in some cases to actually show that. So thinking through, should I build a PowerPoint version of this and have a password on it? Should I build a website and have a password on it? Should I make sure that that website is actually responsive and able to be read easily and consumed on a mobile phone very quickly, or on a projected screen in a conference room? There's a lot of different moving parts, but I think if you can start from finding the right tools that really allow you to have that focus on who's going to be looking at it, when and where in the industry that you're working in, the better off you're going to be. Number six, I think there's a aspect of being an employer that's a bit tricky, where you really want to give people as much time as you can in terms of reviewing their work and understanding it and evaluating it, and then seeing if they can actually come in for an interview and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, there's just a ton of different projects and portfolios that most teams are being asked, and that's inclusive of the actual HR and recruiting teams, as well as the creators and kind of technical leads on the functional side of the companies and opportunities that you'll be seeking. So the big point here is that if you can create it so it can be quickly skimmed and have someone react very strongly to as visual presentation, and they can kind of get the highlights, but then they can come back later and read in particular some of the case studies or some of the deeper dives into particular projects and the processes especially, you're going to find a really good response to that. Number seven, make sure again that the device spectrum that you're delivering for is as accommodated as you can, right? That you actually kind of are thinking about what happens when someone sees this on the phone and wants to interact with a particular project. You want to make sure that that's really buttoned up and as precise and effective as possible. And things like being able to email a PDF or a particular kind of slice of a project over, or a live link. Just thinking through how communication and transfer will work for your portfolio is really important. And then lastly, it's not frozen in concrete once it's done, right? You want to find ways to keep updating it. And in some cases where you're talking to someone that is interested, if you've got a new project that you want to add to it, send them an update to the fact that that is now included, or make sure that it's a case study format that you can unpack the story and the process and the kind of success and status of the project that you've done, and send that out to people. People really do, I can tell you, enjoy seeing that from a candidate that they're really intrigued with. They might not be able to hire you immediately, but there might be something that emerges. But if you can keep that loop open and continue to kind of build out your portfolio presence, people are watching once they've gotten you in their ecosystem of talent to watch. So that's kind of a set of principles that I've kind of tried to live by, as well as touted with a lot of students that I've taught, as well as a lot of young professionals who come and or wanted to join organizations I've been a part of. So just a little bit about my background. I won't dwell on this too much, but I've constantly tried to work in the kind of Overton window, is what they call it, right? Where there's kind of an emerging element of usually technology or culture or a combination of the two, and pushing just ever so slightly to that next phase. And what that's done is that's always kind of required of me a translation back to current times or for current audiences. And there's something that I've learned to enjoy doing. Not everyone loves doing that. Some people just want to do the thing that works the best right now for the basic kind of premise. But I tend to try to innovate around that aspect. So you'll see that in some of the work that you'll kind of see in this portfolio, which is a PowerPoint presentation, which I encourage you all to think about in terms of creating something either in Adobe InDesign or any of the desktop publishing applications, Canva, having those kinds of simple business formatted presentations is incredibly powerful for many of the fields. And it also helps you really gather your thoughts and structure them really well for going to the web or other formats. But nonetheless, just to wrap up on myself, the creative technology realm is something I've really focused on, and how you actually present alongside the content itself is also something to think about. We tend to, in my field, which is Web3 and blockchain and AI, all fused together, we tend to use a lot of video storytelling to set the emotional foundation around which we want to discuss an opportunity with someone, whether that's a client or a partner or an investor. And then we want to show the work and kind of elevate some of the better qualities of that work. All to say, the idea of how the portfolio and the bio and those emotional triggers work is all actually kind of leveling up to how you sell, right? So maybe there's a seminar in the future on sales that that the LAUDC team could put together for you, but it's one of those things that I think creatives hear about and maybe cringe. But the fact is, we're all selling, and the better that you can have your own style and approach, the better off I think you'll be in the future. So there's a set of links that I'm going to segue over to once I kind of give you a few snapshots here of the portfolio consultancy and some of the things that went into that. But the big idea there is to kind of show you some of the principle-driven guidance that's out there, and it's fantastic articles that I'm going to include in the set of links here that kind of really give a great presentation of the principles that I had on the first page. And then the second column there's, I want to walk you through one of the career experiences where I had the challenge to hire about 80 people within about 6 months. And how that process went and what some of the portfolios look like and now look like of the people that I did bring on. And then on the right, some of the tools that are out there, and this is just a snapshot, but some of the more frequently used tools in my world for actually building your own, right? Which I think there's some great stuff that you guys can tap into. So this is a portfolio that represents Sublime Digital, which is my consultancy that I started earlier this year. And the big idea here is that we're kind of showing the blend and the merger between the worlds of what was traditionally called advertising with the world of Web3 and AI. And so here what we're structuring is a little bit of a historical snapshot for clients who've known me or my partners in a different context. And then we're breaking out capabilities, and then we're doing the case study format. And then we're actually showing, okay, what type of platforms have you actually built and launched and have traction? And then we're zooming back out and saying, okay, now here are the sectors of operation that we feel we're well suited to connect with and to work well with and to help as clients. And then opening it up for any Q&A moments that might happen with a potential client. So, kind of starting it off with a little bit of storytelling. There's a bit of an overload right now with the media industry. And so what we do here is we storytell around the context that a lot of clients are experiencing, where they have the large entities, the large consultancies and holding companies. But how does that actually relate to what they're doing as a business versus getting caught up and maybe not getting the level of attention and detail that they might get from an independent like us? Then kind of who are us? Who is this team of people, right? And what are their specialties? And how do you kind of create maybe a 20 to 25 word little mini descriptor of their specialties and capabilities, and showing a little bit of humanity in terms of their portrait? Then we're actually talking about, okay, well, what are some of the technology aspects that are unique to this entity, and how do we actually kind of explain our value proposition in terms of advantages that we bring in terms of tech partners, and how do we actually get them to understand that very quickly, and then bring that back to kind of a relevance to them in terms of their business model and what they're building out. And then we kind of show a bit of the range of clients that we've worked on across the last decade plus, from larger scale established entities to upstart um, startups that are now known, but back in the day were not, to kind of um, brands that are very well known, but maybe not as well understood by their client or their business sector. And so we can kind of give them a sense of some case study information that helps them kind of think about their business in a different way. And then we'll kind of show some of the results of the type of work that we've been able to do and building out brands across a few different industries. In this case, apparel, sneakers, spirits, and Sky Vodka and Campari, and then fashion and BB, and the starting point, and then kind of the later achievement after a few years of working together, and then some of the publications that we've been featured in, and so forth. And then we typically kind of say, okay, let's talk about how we actually work and what's the process, what are the methodologies, and what are the things that you actually kind of have um, the opportunity to collaborate to build and tailor things to your business with us on. What are some of the aspects of when we think about digital and this notion of world building that really go into our processes and how we're actually approaching things? And then we try to simplify it and say, hey, here's a menu of things that we do under these different categories that are our kind of secret sauce and special approach to getting the work and the success metrics where we want them to be. And then we even further break that out into bullet point deliverable sets in terms of what people really want to see in terms of how they would work with us. Then we actually say, okay, now let's look at some visual results of the processes that you've collaborated with us on. In this case, we're showing a few category kind of campaigns that we did, from the tech and home electronic space in the lower right with Hitachi, where we built out their whole campaign approach for about 7 years with their plasma and LCD and LED screens, to a new kind of extension brand for Sky and its whole presence around being a more elevated premium level brand, to the first Fisker vehicle that we helped them launch and get out into the market, to Core, which is a really great jewelry legacy here in Glendale, to Campari and the SLS Hotel and so forth. So, you know, these campaigns were all designed and built out with a cinematic sensibility. And so when we think about how we want the client and or potential partner to look at the type of work that we're really proud to produce, it helps dial in their expectations. And typically there's questions about, well, these are all very high-end, very polished photography based approaches. Is that really all that you guys can do? And it's like, no, we have other stuff that we can do. We can work with really great tech and gaming companies on helping them think through, you know, of course, their core brand and their visual language, but also how to translate that technology and what it means to build your own rig, how to actually embrace the community and think about how to create momentum around how people engage with that brand and attend events and really make it a personal kind of mission to become a great game member. And then we can talk to them about the systems that go into building out the kind of brand infrastructure once they've actually got their brand. And so thinking through how we actually would structure that for large scale as well as startups. And then we think through, you know, what it's like to actually create kind of the illustration-based process artifacts, sometimes that end up as the actual final result. In this case, this was a collaborator that worked on a lot of movie posters. And how do we end up either leveraging that as the full campaign or use that as a reference for photography and so forth. I mean, a lot of this is now actively changing because of generative AI, but nonetheless, we're able to show a lot of different work to kind of appeal to the client and or a partner for our business. In this case, this is all about content and video and kind of showing them a sense of the types of video that we've produced in terms of television commercials or animated broadcast television commercials as well, to things that have a lot of special effects and so forth, that we want to show a range. You know, in this case, we're saying, hey, we have worked with 4 Coca-Cola brands simultaneously. We've done things that have been very much about kind of Americana to things that are more high fashion. And we can dive deeper into each one of these, of course, if they have questions, but the notion is to just kind of give them a sense of the spectrum of work that we've done, and then how it's applied across the different mediums. So, so that's kind of, you know, a general approach to how we've laid out this particular portfolio, and kind of giving a sample set. You know, there's an actual physical book that we produced. It was a really premium level print treatment that we had, and we invested heavily in it. And we would bring that to the conference room or to wherever we're meeting a client, and they wanted to have some tactile interactions with the portfolio. So it's something else to think about in terms of your work and the things that you'll be putting forth. If you go in for an interview, there might be a project or two that you might want to print out and take in with them and put it on the table and go through with them, or put it up on a wall and walk them through it. There is a interesting energy dynamic that sets up in the real world around being able to show the work and go through it and have someone kind of feel it, particularly if there are samples or things that are much more sensorial than strictly on-screen presentations. But then switching back to screen presentations, you know, a lot of the work that we were doing in terms of with clients, you know, 3, 5, 7 years, this last decade or so even, the process has been, how do we actually get something put together in terms of an application or a hub notion for the end user that they can always rely on. And in this case, this was for a coffee retailer, let's say. And we wanted to help them with a rewards program, a loyalty rewards program. And they advanced it now to some of the areas that we were consulting with them on back in 2016. But this was a company that was going to spin out of our collaboration together and service other industries like the airlines and so forth. But the format is what I'm showing this for, in terms of you guys kind of understanding how portfolios are structured, right? Where we've got a logo for the client in the upper left-hand corner. We've got our kind of company or entity or platform logo in the right. And then we've got some snapshots of the actual product on the device. Then we've got some breakouts of the actual results there, both on the far left as well as the text column in the middle there. But it's just a good idea for you to kind of think through your format and how that's going to be something that you can use consistently for showing your projects. This was another project that we helped work on. So when you go to lego.com, that was a project that I had the honor to work on a while back. And it was a beast of a project, but we're summarizing it very quickly here for people to understand that we are capable not just of generating kind of startup applications, but also taking on existing frameworks and doing what they're calling transformation level work, where you're working with lots of kind of in-flight infrastructure that companies have invested in, and how to best preserve that, yet give them the new thing that they need for the future going forward. So in the case of Lego, that was a much more modern and unified web platform that would work well on phones as well. And then they branched out into other things like AR and so forth. But again, the storytelling framework around that was what was key. In this case, This is for a large life sciences company that had an idea with us to build out a content hub for their customers to better understand the offerings that they had, but also to be inspired by some of the outcomes that people got by using the actual product. So I'm going to fast forward to a section where we start to talk a little bit about how we like to work and our process, but at the highest level, right? Where we really think about how we want potential clients to understand that we're really going to push them to think about that 3 to 5 year range, but understand that we need to come back and think about the 1 year range with them. But we've got to have a vision. We've got to actually have something that allows us to get to that preferred reality. And so we want to spend time with them really thinking that through, as opposed to kind of just being simply reactive to some fleeting dynamics that we've seen kind of come and go very quickly. So orienting and helping them think that through, I think, is an analogous kind of thing I would recommend in terms of how you write your biographies and how you write the things that you are really interested in, so that they can know, oh wow, this person's really into understanding, how the aerospace industry in the Southern California region is actually having a resurgence in the new space industry. That's a really intriguing topic to unpack with someone who might be looking to hire someone, maybe not even for that particular industry, but something allied to it. So laying out your interests and your process, kind of how you engage those interests, I think is the big note here. Again, back to those ideas of how we actually kind of work with some particular tech platforms and explaining and showing the results of those collaborations is kind of the purpose of that slide. We then kind of break out a bit of the notion of how we kind of think about both business from the larger kind of, let's say, incumbent perspective, as well as the entrepreneur startup mindset, and how we try to blend those two when we work with clients of any scale or any sort. And then we kind of just say, hey, look, we're looking to work with people that we have a really great rapport with, and we really want to make sure that we hit these 3 points really well in any projects that we would do together. And then we open up for questions, right? We kind of have a dialogue with them about, things that they might want to know in terms of, well, what if we develop something completely proprietary in our conversation or our collaboration? Well, we're already kind of thinking along those lines, and we have infrastructure in terms of contracts and so forth that accommodate that. Or, hey, what if we would like to invest in kind of the front end equity of building out something? Is that something that this company can do? And in our case, yes, we actually have a vision for a fund that we're working with to be able to work with clients that have kind of earlier seed stage ideas. And then we kind of talk about, hey, here's some potential kind of price ranges of how you might engage, right? And thinking through what it's like to actually get started on a project with Sublime. So that's kind of a portfolio example there. Maybe I'll pause and see if there's any questions that you want to relay to Mariana, Jose, before I switch over here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lamer. First and foremost, amazing work. There is a question by Nicole. Nicole, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself or if I can just read it off, but I'll give you the opportunity to unmute and speak directly.
Sure, yeah, thank you. I was just curious if there is, I mean, I know about AI, but I'm not that familiar. And in creating these portfolios, is there any particular program or app or site or something of the sort that you recommend that might be helpful in generating some of the AI for these portfolios? And additionally, what type of platform would you create the portfolio on? Would it be, is it a PowerPoint? Is it InDesign? Is it Canva or whatnot?
Sure. Yeah. Exciting question. Let me stop sharing on this front and talk a little bit, and then I'll switch back to the other work. Um, I would say there is a tsunami of platforms that have emerged for creating portfolio level um, work. So I would say, and maybe I'll include this in the links. I didn't put in so many of the AI tools um, in the kind of roster I'm going to walk you through here now. But one that I would recommend off the cuff here is, let's see, it's a platform that actually builds websites with a very simple set of prompts. I'll share my screen on it. And it's called 10web.io. And the premise is fantastic, right? That you could kind of with a prompt go through and establish at least a good baseline for your website. Uh, the issue though, I think is going to come down to art direction and visual, let's say, sophistication. This is a system, and I think the majority of that I've seen um, that are standalone and don't interface with another set of tools that I'm going to talk about, is that they are quite good at kind of taking the core kind of web 2 aesthetic, I'll call it, and making that happen very quickly. And it's all live and HTML based. Probably a few other formats like React and some of the other advanced JavaScript tools baked in. But this is one that could be of interest for someone that I would say is kind of like maybe intermediate level with using websites. I wouldn't say that this is the most friendly for beginners.
Mhm.
And then for advanced people, obviously this is great because you can do so much more, right? But just to answer your question, 10web is one that's out and it's doing quite well and people are really excited about it. In terms of presentations like the one I showed, which is more of like a slide deck kind of presentation, there are a couple that I'll also include in the links to you guys. And they're quite robust, right? They effectively have a series of aesthetic templates for you to choose from, but it'll come back to um, the type of content that you've outlined and or structured, and whether or not it can access imagery that is really custom to that or is relatively general. So for instance, here's one that I'll include. This one's got a weird name, but Desk Opus. But the idea of you kind of typing in a title for a slide presentation and then having it enrich it with a few suggestions based on your prompt, and then it's going to come back even with the option to add in rich media things like video and so forth. It's pretty incredible. But again, I think it's a level of intermediate to advanced skill that I think would really need to be had before you're going to see great results with this. But absolutely, there's some great tools. I mean, literally, if I open up Twitter right now, I'm sure someone would have a great tool that I hadn't seen in the last 24 hours, right? Which is what's exciting about AI.
Of course. So for super beginners, I mean, even if it's just, the bio word portion of this, is there something that's super beginner friendly that you know of? And if not, that's fine. I'll just take a look at these.
Yeah, I would say copy.ai.
Copy.ai.
It's actually quite a powerful tool to leverage, but in terms of being able to use it right away, it's quite good. So in terms of someone writing just one sentence, I am a designer graduating from Glendale Community College with an aspiration to work in animation and film and TV. And then you could enter that in and say, hey, give me 3 different versions of this. And I want them to all be 50 words or less, or 100 words or less. And the machine just, I think you know that already, but for your audience, I think that, they may not have played around with it yet, but it's pretty magical. I know there's, consternation and fear on the AI topic, which I don't want to get too deep into, but this is one I would recommend for that purpose.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nicole. Before we go to Sozi, there is another question by Janelle. Janelle wants to know if there's any information that you'll be covering on CS program portfolios, and if so, any advice that you can kind of put more input on that.
Sure. So when we say CS, just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. Is that computer science or?
Yes, I believe so. Janelle, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and inquire directly with